Python programming for beginners, understanding print statements, data types, and variables.
In line 4, we'll see a variable, the second type of the data type that we deal with. That is an integer. What is an integer? It's a whole number. The qualification here is the whole number. Now, as I mentioned above, it's not as simple as the dichotomy we have in math and English. Words versus numbers. No. In programming, we require a little more, what's the word? A little more, being a little more specialized or a little more narrow in how we deal with different types of these, different types of words and different types of data. So in this case, when we talk about integers, they're whole numbers, right? They could be from 1 to whatever number you want. All of them need to be whole numbers. And the reason why I'm qualifying whole numbers over and over and again, because at the same time, if you look at line 5, which is called pi, which has the an abstracted value of pi, you'll see it's a decimal number. So decimal numbers are not integers. They are floating point numbers. And this might not be important in Python, all of this that I'm going over, because in Python, all of this is done under the hood by Python itself in identifying what exact data type you're using. But if you go to more precise programming languages like C or Java, you'll probably need to qualify exactly what sort of data type you're using. And if you don't do that, it's going to create problems for your code in compiling, and that brings a whole slew of issues that you would prefer to avoid. Now, as there are two types of data that we discussed within the number section, there's also another type of data within the word section that we have. We have string, and then we have booleans. Now, booleans are not strictly comparable like integers and decimals, but they are basically there are two elements in booleans, true and false. Let's put it this way. Booleans are just two alternatives or two responses, possible responses to a stimulus. Basically, it could be true, false, it could be 0, 1, it could be up, down. So booleans are very, very important because they are used a lot when we are programming. In particular, it's a very integral part of a lot of softwares or programs that you would use in your everyday life. Now, if you move to line 7, now we move to more so of, complicated data types that we'll be dealing with. They're not precisely separate data types, but they are data types that are an amalgamation of different data that could be, stored together in a single variable. So in line 7, we talk about lists. What is a list? It's just a collection of data that might have a common theme. So if you look at line 7, we have a variable called fruit. So we have common elements within fruits called apple, banana, cherry, which shows that most elements within lists need to have a common theme. Now, this isn't a strictly syntax-based rule. This is more so of a programming-based rule that you might need to follow if you're programming, just to make things easier for yourself. You can add unrelated elements within a list, but that would not be recommended. The syntax for a list is square brackets within which you can use any of the 4 data types we discussed above: ints, booleans, strings, or floating point numbers. Anything can go within a list, and they're just separated by a comma in between them. Now there are 2 more data types: tuples and dictionaries. I'll let George take over in explaining both of them.
All right, thanks, Mohammed. All right, so on line 8 there, we see that we have an instantiation of some stuff on the right to the left called colors. So essentially, this particular data type on the right is called a tuple, right? It's called a tuple because it's enclosed in parentheses. What is a tuple? A tuple is a ordered collection of elements, right? And the thing that you need to understand about a tuple is that they are immutable, right? And the reason they're immutable is because in programming, sometimes you want to make sure that the data remains constant and cannot be accidentally changed, right? This is, I think I found myself using tuples when I got into deeper programming scenarios whereby, those cases are needed. But for beginners, this may not be something that you'll get into initially, but they are very powerful in those cases. Line 9, we have what we call a dictionary. What delineates a dictionary? The dictionary is delineated by those curly brackets, right? And the interesting thing about dictionaries is that they actually have key value pairs. Dictionaries are really ubiquitous in programming, right? In Python, and the reason is that it's a really, really quick and easy way to structure your data, and it's very powerful. It's very scalable. So you'll see a lot of dictionaries being used. How do we delineate that, right? For example, on the right, you have the variable person, right, which is instantiated to a dictionary. On the on the left, you have a variable person, which is instantiated to a dictionary on the left, on the right. Okay. But essentially, you see the word name, right? That is called a key in a dictionary, right? And Alice is, in this case, is what they call a value in a dictionary. Age is a key, right? And the integer 28 is a value. So I might have got my left and rights mixed up, but I think that breakdown kind of shows you what a dictionary actually does. Well, if you guys want some deeper breakdowns of any of these particular data types, the tuple, the dictionary, the list, the integer, etc., you can definitely put it in the comment section below. Mohammed, I don't know if you have anything else.
No, I think with that, we can wrap up our first video on Python basics. There's still I think a couple of videos we still need to make on more of the basic concepts revolving around Python, but I think this is more than enough for a single video. And again, if you have any queries, if you have any queries, questions, or any suggestions on any of the topics that you want us to make videos on, even if they're individual data types that we just explained here, please let us know in the comments. And with that, we'll see you in our next video.